All
Go
right,
live.
so what okay, so we're on this All right. Did you guys send over like some show notes? I think I saw it a little bit in the on the Instagram feed.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
sent some notes.
Okay, perfect. Lakers targets. Perfect. Got it. Yeah, easy enough. Yeah, so
Uh,
whenever you guys are good, just let me know.
so hello and welcome to the Alabama Sports Podcast. I'm your host Corey Harrison. Today I have a special guest Trevor Lane and a returning guest Big Baby Jonathan of Sports Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast. How y'all doing today?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having us on here, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for
And
having me on, Corey. Appreciate it.
so Trevor, I had looked at your a couple of your videos about the NBA restart. I've been kind of following your page particularly closely, and I kind of want to speak about that out the gate first.
Hmm.
About a couple different scenarios and formats that you spoke on your podcast, particularly the one about the 16 playoff team format. I just wanted to see if you could like go in like more detail about it, um, and what are your thoughts about this 16 team playoff format?
Sure. So one of the things that's going on right now is the NBA it feels like we're past the point where they've made the decision on are we coming back or not. And that answer, fortunately for all of us, is yes, right? It seems like that's going to be the answer is yes, we're coming back. But then what does that look like? And one of the ideas that they're kicking around among several ideas is the idea of seeding the playoffs 1 through 16. So regardless of conference, doesn't matter whether you're East Coast or West Coast, you're just going to seed the top 16 teams, and that's it. In the past, there have been a lot of calls to do that because in most recent years, it's been the West has been a lot stronger than the East. And so the goal was to get more playoff worthy teams in, like the ninth place team, 10th place team in the Western Conference were much, much better than, say, the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference. And yet they were missing out on the playoffs. And this season, that wouldn't be the case. It's actually 8-8 if you work it out that way. But the big thing that's been stopping that from happening in years past has been travel. Like if you get, say, right now, the 2 and 15 matchup would be the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets. Well, in years past, they would say, well, the travel is just it's too extensive, flying all the way across the country. That's too much. Let's not do that. Let's keep it in conferences. Well, this time around, it's all going to be in Orlando. There is no travel. And so the prevailing thought is, well, if we were ever going to try this thing, now is the time to give it a shot because we don't have to worry about the travel situation. But there are a lot of other ideas being kicked around, but that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, that one particularly, I was more so interested in that one, just because you are going to get the best basketball to be
Mm-hmm.
able to see which team from both conferences are going to be crowned champion, because you're going to have a true champion out of that particular format, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where moving forward, the NBA could kind of test the waters right now and then figure out moving forward, is this something we want to continue? Do we just deal with the travel issue? Because like you said, you're probably going to get the best team, if not the best two teams coming out of this. Like for example, by the 16 team format, you would get the Clippers would actually be on the opposite side of
Hmm.
the bracket than the Lakers. So you could wind up with Lakers versus Clippers for the NBA championship. Could still be Lakers versus Bucks. You would get Lakers versus Nets to start out. Then you'd probably get the Rockets, and then they'd follow that up with a team like maybe the Toronto Raptors, or maybe the Denver Nuggets, something like that. So it would look pretty different just in terms of who they played. But other than that, the playoff structure would stay pretty much the same. Although what we've been hearing today now is more and more likely that you're going to have not just the 8 Western Conference playoff seeded teams coming in, but you would also have 4 additional teams joining them, all from the West. So you'd have the top 8 from the East, cut it off at the Orlando Magic, the 8 seed, the top 8 from the West, which would cut off at the Memphis Grizzlies. And then because you would have teams like the Portland Trailblazers, Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, and New Orleans Pelicans, all 4 of those teams can make an argument for being in playoff position in a spot where they can make a playoff run. The thought is that they're going to find a way to incorporate those teams as well. So I think we're going to see a 20 team playoff grouping this go round, regardless of what system they choose. It looks like we're going to see 20 teams coming back instead of 16.
Okay. So, Big Baby, what are your thoughts on that format after Trevor just broke it down like that?
I like it, and I want to watch my Lakers play basketball again. I don't care how they do it, as long as we win a championship. As you can see behind me, I want another banner, to go up there. 2020, man. It's been too long. We gotta win this championship for Kobe, man, and I'm excited because. But I did hear about Wojnarowski saying that they're not going to expect it to announce a decision yet. And what have you been hearing about that? Have you heard anything about that, Trevor Lane?
Yeah, so it sounds like that's nothing that's going to be like set in stone just yet. It might take a little bit for them to
Mm-hmm.
make anything official. But what I've been telling everybody is, look, here's the thing. If you look at any of the top newsbreakers out there and everybody else there, it's all moving in one particular direction. Whether you're hearing it from Woj, from Shams, from Chris Haynes, Mark Stein, anybody, Keith Smith,
Yeah.
everybody is saying the same thing, and that's that the NBA is moving towards coming back. Now, there's a lot of the nitty gritty that they have to fill in, a lot of the details they have to figure out. So realistically, when they do that Board of Governors call, which is going to be coming up on Friday, it's going to be to figure out some of those details rather than officially announce, okay, all systems are go. We're coming back on this date, right? So I think that's going to be the holdup right now is they have to cross the T's and dot the I's before they can make it official. But it's 99% sure the NBA is coming back.
So, kind of jumping around a little bit, I did want to ask you about how did you feel once the season was abruptly stopped? Once our current climate now, and I kind of understood why. And how did you feel about the NBA's response to it?
Oh man, it was a gut punch. That's for sure. That's for sure. It was an absolute gut punch. And I'll tell you, I'll never forget it. It will be forever for me. It will be I remember where I was when moment. My family and I went on a vacation. That was my off week. We were down in Cabo San Lucas, and we're on vacation, and I'm on the beach, and my phone goes off, and I see the notification saying that the NBA season was being suspended, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was worried at first about being able to get back in the country, and then just for the Lakers, you look at what they've gone through, right? The last 6 years, everything that's happened from, Kobe tearing his Achilles, Dr. Jerry Buss passing away, Dwight Howard leaving in free agency, and Julius Randle breaks his leg in his first game, then
Mm-hmm.
Kobe passing. It's been one thing after another, 6 straight seasons of not making the playoffs, and all of these things happening. And it felt like finally here was the breakthrough. The Lakers are the first seed. This season felt like Lakers basketball again. So to get walloped the way we did this season with Kobe passing away and now the season getting suspended right after the Lakers beat the Bucks, the Lakers beat the Clippers, you were making a case for them to be the favorite heading into the playoffs. Here you go, rug gets pulled out from under them. But at the same time, the bigger picture, of course, beyond the world of sports, is that this is what was necessary. This is what had to happen. And on that level, I'm proud of the NBA for leading the way in pulling the plug before a lot of the other sports leagues did. But nevertheless, as a Lakers fan, it certainly hurt.
Big Baby.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Last 6 years have been rough. Though Kobe Bryant passing, and if we win the championship, this championship is going to be bittersweet. It's going to be the most one of the best of all time, in my opinion, because what LeBron went through coming here, messing up his hamstring, getting AD, the whole Kobe thing, whole stoppage of play, and come back and win the title, that would be put right up there with the greatest team that LeBron been a part of. I know he came back down 3-1, but you got to put it up there all time. Great team of all time if the season comes back and win the title. That's how I feel.
Trevor, you echoed a lot of the things that I've said on previous podcasts to my friends. Just being a Laker fan for as long as I have, it's just been a lot of things that's been going on with this franchise. And the last championship that we was able to enjoy was in 2010 when we beat the Boston Celtics, and I thought that we was gonna probably beat the Mavericks and head on and win that championship in 2011. And then after that, we got into the playoffs again in 2013, and Kobe tore his Achilles, and right after one thing out right after another, and then we went through all those down years. And I thought last year we had some momentum once we signed LeBron. Then he goes down. Then We have the whole free agency thing, well, with the trade rumors. Basically, the locker room was toxic. Magic steps down before the game. It's just a lot of things that's really been going on. It's just been an emotional roller coaster, and I'm still, kind of in shock about the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter. Just being a fan of Lakers basketball, we just, need something, some kind of silver lining. It has to be the restart of this season, so that we can at least compete for this championship, and hopefully we can, win that championship, and it'll be just the whole culmination of all this stuff going on, just the perfect storm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at this, so this is something we've discussed a ton on my show. People have been saying, even Shaq, right, has been saying, whoever wins the championship this season is going to have an asterisk by them, right? There's going to be this, well, they won a championship this year, but it wasn't a typical year. And somehow that would diminish the value of that championship. I say, no way, no chance. Whoever wins the championship this year is going to have gone through what's way worse, right? A much, much more difficult situation in terms of stopping the season part of the way through and then rekindling that momentum that you had, right? Particularly for the Lakers, and then making a playoff run with now no home court advantage. That no longer exists. So if the Lakers come out of this, come out of everything that they've dealt with, and they win an NBA championship, I don't care if other people out there are saying, oh, there needs to be an asterisk. I will
Mm-hmm.
treasure this championship as much, if not more, than all of the other ones because I think they will have faced even more adversity to get to it. I think certainly, like you said, in a year in which we lost Kobe Bryant, to hoist a championship trophy now, I think would feel great for Lakers fans and would be kind of a I don't know if I want to say a sigh of relief, but it would be a much needed victory for the fan base in general. So yeah, I would be absolutely thrilled, and I think it will count just as much, if not more, than any other championship they could win.
Absolutely. Big baby, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree 100%, man. Because this, like we said, season's been crazy, ups and downs. And once we win it, it's going to be exciting. LA is going to turn up, downtown LA. Once we
There
win.
might not be a parade, but if they if they even win,
Yeah.
they do it. We will all celebrate separately, social
Yeah.
distancing and all that if we need to, whatever it takes. But Lakers fans should absolutely celebrate the heck out of this championship if and when they win it.
Yeah.
So once we was like full stay in place and we was without sports,
Mhm.
how have you been holding up during this whole entire time? As far as like um your podcast and getting content out and things like that, how are you been able to cope with the I guess out of the norm that we've normally been accustomed to as far as like your broadcast and things like that?
I mean, not gonna lie, it's been difficult. It certainly has. March 6th, the Lakers took on the Milwaukee Bucks, and that night, Lakers Nation hosted a watch party, and it was planned to be the first of many watch parties. And I was completely humbled by the turnout, by the number of people that we come out to watch our show live and to do all of that. It was incredible. And then everything fell to pieces. And obviously, it's going to be a while before we can do something like that again. So in terms of our shows and our content and all of that, yeah, we've had to get a little bit creative. I'm still doing a live show twice a week, Monday nights and Thursday nights at 9 o'clock Pacific time across Lakers Nation social media. I get on there with Gary Sheffield Jr. and Chris the Masterpiece Masters, and we do our Lakers Nation podcast live, and we talk to the fans directly. And so we're trying to kind of keep that connection for everybody. And in a lot of times it's not necessarily just talking about Lakers basketball, but we're talking about life in general and checking in on people and seeing how they're doing. And obviously, as things are getting closer and closer to kind of formalizing this comeback, we've had some more basketball to talk about. But we've at least been able to keep that connection with the fan base through our live shows. And yeah, it's not easy. And you look across the sports industry, it's certainly been a difficult time, and we're all looking forward to getting sports back up and running. That's for sure.
Big baby, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been crazy. What I've been doing, been podcasting with Corey and staying busy, coming up with different ideas for my show. Like who's the greatest Laker of all time? Who would you take in the Game 7 NBA Finals? Kobe, LeBron, or Jordan? Just implement different things for my channel, and it's been working really well.
So for me, I would normally have like these sports talks and debates. I work at a gym, and so I would always think that I could possibly come out with a podcast and do a podcast. And whenever I had to be secluded at home, I said, you know what, I'm going to try to start this podcast and try to, get it off the ground. So I had one show with a friend, a family member, and we just kind of like discuss basketball, football, and different things like that. So I started, doing more shows and trying to find content, even though we didn't have sports. And it's been really difficult to put together stuff like that because you don't have live sports to talk about. So you're talking about a lot of past events, a lot of things that we talk about is kind of repetitive and things like that. So I'm really ready to get this season started. So to see how this podcast can kind of progress with live sports because we'll have fresh new content, more frequently than having to revisit old history and talking about starting the season back and things like that. So I'm really ready to get this thing started. So to see this podcast grow, to see other podcasts grow, to listen to more live streams from your podcast because I do follow your podcast frequently on YouTube. Really enjoy your content. Being a Laker fan, it's just like one of the best Laker podcasts that I've heard in a while.
Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. It's certainly been a labor of love putting together the Lakers Nation podcast. It's been a lot of fun, but like you said, it's going to be a lot more interesting when we have some fresh content to talk about. In fact, I realized that we've been doing the Lakers Nation podcast now for going on a little bit over 4 years, and Gary Sheffield Jr. and I were hanging out after our last show. We are just talking about everything, and I had to explain to him like how really, really awful it was when we first started. And so I actually went back and played the very first episode for him just so we could kind of listen and laugh at how much things have changed and how much the show has changed. People look at podcasting and you guys know it's not easy. People think, oh, it's easy. You just get on and talk about sports. It is way more difficult once you try it. And but it's also very addicting and it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, we've been continuing on, and I appreciate you guys watching it. Thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, definitely. I would definitely keep it, close eye on what you're reporting because I'm a diehard Laker fan. You talking about Lakers? Of course, I'm going to tune in. Go ahead, Big Baby. You had something?
Yeah, just like you said, Trevor Lane. First part started this podcast. Even right now, I still go back to my first video. Not good, and I learned from that. Like every time I make a mistake, I learn from it. And Kobe Bryant's motivational videos help me just in general through this difficult time right now. Like my main goals before the year's over, have Dwight Howard on my channel and Jeannie Buss, the Lakers owner. I'm gonna work towards that. I know it's a high goal, but I know I can get to it.
Well, that's good. That's good. Always set those goals and chase after them and keep going. And you know what? It's not easy, but it's you keep pushing and eventually start making progress. And next thing you know, you've got fans from around the world that are listening, and it's very, very cool. I will say this though, it's whenever the Lakers Nation staff gets together.
Mm-hmm.
This is every single time. I'm not kidding you. The our owner at Lakers Nation will bring up the fact that when I first sold them on, hey, let me do a podcast, let me just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll handle everything. You don't have to do anything. Here's a sample podcast, and I sent it over to them. They played that for the entire staff to listen to and critique, and they still make fun of me for it. And this was 4.5 years ago that we did this because it was that terrible. It gets better, but you just got to keep grinding at it.
Yep, grinding, chip away, and learn from the mistakes. That's what I do every time, and it actually helps.
So, Trevor, you did get into a little bit of your background. I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but could you tell us how you kind of got into this podcasting thing, and like, is that the only thing that you currently work on right now, or do you have other projects that you work on?
No, so the way it all began is I initially was a writer, and that was what I did. I way back I had wanted to write novels, and so I would get into some things, get into some story ideas, and I loved writing, and I still do. But I would get into some things, and I can never really finish them. I can never see it through. And I realized the problem was that every time I sat down to write, I would write a little bit and then I would get distracted by Lakers rumors. I would be reading Lakers message boards and talking to people about the Lakers online and everything. And then finally I threw my hands up and said, I'm doing the wrong thing here. I need to write what it is that I love. And I had a little bit of a sports writing background from some topics. I actually used to write about pro wrestling, which now Chris the Masterpiece Masters is one of my co-hosts. So kind of a random thing there, but I wrote about pro wrestling and MMA and things like that. And so I finally kind of reignited that because I figured I had to write what I love. And I started up my own blog at first just to kind of get my feet wet. I got hired on by one site, and then from there I was picked up by Lakers Nation initially to just write one article a week, and that was all I was doing. I was writing one editorial each week. Another person had started up the Lakers Nation podcast, and I think they did 8 or 9 episodes, and then it kind of fell apart, and that wasn't working out, and so there was a vacancy there, and I just said, I've never done a podcast, but I'm interested in it. Give me a shot. Will you let me go with it? I will handle everything. You don't have to worry about anything, guys. I will run it. Just give me the platform and let me do it. And unfortunately, I was able to talk them into it, and I was able to fight through all my struggles early on. And then from there, I made the transition so I went from writing into podcasting. And then I've recently, in the last year or so, well, a little bit more than a year, transitioned from just doing the written word and audio into now we're doing video stuff. And I'm producing 95% of the content that's showing up on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel now. And so that's been great too, is kind of evolving in that way. And I'm constantly looking for, new fields to grow into and everything. But I feel like at this point, I've kind of settled into the podcast and the video stuff. And then I still go back and write editorials every now and then, but it's been a steady progression. I saw an opportunity and I went for it. And fortunately, it's all kind of worked out up to this point.
What keeps you motivated, especially during this time? What keeps the creative juices flowing, especially during this time, since we don't have the live sports and you're not able to be in that full capacity that we normally accustomed to seeing you in? What keeps you going?
I mean, honestly, there's been certainly times over the last few weeks even where my enthusiasm for it has waned, and maybe I haven't been as, instead of doing 2 or 3 videos a day, I did maybe one, and I just wasn't on top of all the breaking news like I normally am or whatever. And then I kind of, correct myself and get back into it. And I think what always motivates me and what gets me is when I remind myself, okay, stop, and you take a step back. And I'm extremely fortunate. I'm extremely lucky to be where I'm at right now with Lakers Nation, and to have that kind of a platform and have that size of platform and everything, because there's so many people out there that would love to get to do this and to be able to do some of the very, very cool things that I've gotten to do in terms of interactions with players and team personnel and all that kind of stuff. And having my work read by people all over the world and all of that. So it's reminding yourself of, just how cool it is to get to do this as a job. And so, yeah, it's that really understanding that big picture. Even in these tough times, I get to talk about the Lakers every day. Like that's pretty amazing in and of itself. And I'm very, very fortunate, and I try to remind myself often of that.
So, what would your advice be to up and coming podcasts like me and Big Baby? We're trying to, get to where you are. Obviously, things are, we have to start at the ground floor. We're trying to work our way. What is the biggest piece, piece of advice that you received when you started, and what would you tell us to kind of motivate us to, follow our dreams?
It's just a matter of just continuing the grind, keep working, and the biggest thing is just put yourself out there. When you see an opportunity, jump at it and keep going until that comes through and you get it. There's a lot of people where the barrier is themselves, right? I mean, the barrier is, well, I don't really know how to do a podcast. I don't really know how to how to do video. And frankly, this wasn't a strength of mine for a long, long time. I wasn't the type of person to break through barriers. And I was more the type to go, well, I don't really know how to do that. So I'm just, I'll go a different direction. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because it's Lakers or whatever, but it's kind of changed my thinking on a lot of things. And so when it was, hey, I noticed we don't have somebody doing the Lakers Nation podcast. Well, I don't know audio, but I'm going to spend hour after hour after hour, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to talk to everybody that I need to figure it out. And then, hey, I'm going to teach myself video editing, and I'm going to figure out how to do that, and I'm going to learn how to present myself on camera and do all of those sorts of things. So, like I said, the biggest thing is just jumping at every opportunity you get and understanding that, you know what, it might be terrible at first, and that's okay. And you have to be okay with putting yourself out there and failing and failing and failing, because eventually you will succeed. I'm certainly not at the pinnacle where I want to be or anything like that, but it's just that constant growth that you got to have. It's, I know it's a buzzword that's gone around, but you have to have a growth mindset.
Right, right. Big Baby, did you have anything else for Trevor?
What is before the year's over? What's the number one goal you want to accomplish before 2020 is over? Like any celebrities you want on your show? Like what's one celebrity that you want to have on your show before the year's over?
In terms of getting guys on my show and everything, I mean, like Magic Johnson would be a dream come true, because that's the guy that I grew up watching, and that was my favorite player growing up. But just as far as that goes, my goals have kind of shifted. For a long time, it was I want to get this player on, or I want to get that player on, and do that sort of thing. And that's still important. It's still so, I interviewed Jared Dudley a few weeks ago, and I was all fired up about that and everything. And that kind of stuff still gets you. But now it's more, I'm looking at, I want this quality of video. I want to get my audio quality to this level. I want to be able to reach this many people. Those are more the goals that I'm looking at. And so I look at other shows and what they're producing, and I think, okay, in the next few months, I want to be able to get my show, my production quality. I want to get my editing skills up to that level. So that's what I look at. For one of the things that's really kept me going during this time has been fantasy football, even though it's not football season, like dynasty leagues and all that. Mm-hmm. So I've been taking a lot of inspiration from like the fantasy footballers, the Fantasy Pros podcast. There's a CBS fantasy football podcast. The quality that they put out has been really great. Matthew Berry's stuff as well has been great. So even though it's not basketball related, I've been taking kind of the quality of content from there and figuring out what they do that works and what doesn't work. And I've been trying to apply that to my own show. So those have been more my goals, based on, the creating a high level of quality for my production.
Absolutely. So I want to segue to a couple more topics, and then we're gonna end the show. What do you think about this Lakers Clippers rivalry? Is it a legitimate rivalry?
Well, here's the thing, right? So most people, and I put this out on Twitter a bunch and everything, and I say, hey, anything that comes up with the Lakers Clippers rivalry, if I use the word rivalry, I get people firing back. It's not a rivalry. The Clippers have never won. You can't say rivalry, blah, blah, blah. I've also put out the poll many times. Would you rather have the Lakers, if you had the option to beat one of these teams, would you rather beat the Clippers or would you rather beat the Celtics? Or who's your most hated team? And the Clippers keep coming in number one. And to me, that tells me that is a rivalry. If the Clippers have suddenly usurped the Celtics and are now the most hated team by Lakers fans, that's a rivalry. It is. The Celtics are the nemesis of the Lakers for decades now. I grew up hating the Celtics. To this day, I do not wear green, right? One of my co-hosts on a show we do, the NBA front office show, Keith Smith, he is a Celtics guy. We were talking today about how I'm a Lakers guy. He's a Celtics guy. It's kind of the odd couple type thing. I don't wear green, but the Clippers rivalry has become a very real thing. And I think it's great as long as the Clippers don't win. It's going to be, I can tell you, if the Clippers win a championship this year or next year, or whatever, it'll be certainly frustrating for Lakers fans. But as long as the Lakers are able to kind of still come out on top, I think the rivalry is going to be a good thing overall. We haven't seen the Clippers make tons of inroads in terms of stealing away Lakers fans or anything like that. Lakers fandom is very generational, right? People grew up as Lakers fans. So I don't see a big threat there, but there's still kind of it's that younger sibling mentality that you're dealing with. And it's that little bit of an annoyance. but it's also going to drive ratings. And so, from an NBA perspective, from a basketball perspective, from a Lakers fan perspective, in terms of motivating them to get out and really support their team, I think overall it's a big positive. So I'm excited for it, but again, it's going to be a gut punch if the Clippers wind up winning. So I'm just hoping that doesn't happen.
What do you think about the rivalry, Big Baby?
Oh, Clippers, Lakers. To me, it's not rivalry until we have a big battle in the playoffs with them. That's how I look at it. I don't like Boston. I can't stand Boston because they ruined my 2008. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they ruined it, and I don't even watch that. A lot of Celtics fans send me that 2008. I don't even watch it, but I hit them back with the 2010 video, and they don't respond. So, overall, Clippers to me is not a rival until you battle in the playoffs. That's how I look at it. And the Clippers can win two championships. They still won't win LA. It's Laker Nation. Laker Nation will always be a Laker town, regardless of how many championships the Clippers get, which I don't think they'll get any this year, in my opinion.
So I agree with you, Trevor, because their disrespect this season has been blatant.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because let's go back to July when free agency was going on. And I'm sitting here checking my phone every day, looking at the reports, reading, every article. All signs pointed to us signing Kawhi Leonard. And I remember the morning I woke up. It was a Saturday morning. And I woke up and he was in a Clippers uniform. I just rolled out of my bed. I just could not believe it because we had all the momentum, all the signs, all the analysts were almost 100% certain that he was going to sign with the Lakers. After taking Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka on this I guess this ride because they ended up having to travel to wherever he was at. They didn't meet at their training facility. They met somewhere in some kind of remote location in California where they had to travel to him. And I was all like, okay, that's kind of strange. And then the next morning, I wake up, he was the last domino piece, and that kind of messed up everything for us because we could have signed other players, and then we had to kind of scramble to put the team together.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost wrecked us but we kind of came together, and I think Rob Pelinka did a masterful job putting this roster together, despite what Kawhi Leonard did to us.
Yeah, so here's when I look back on that night, and I get there's going to be that frustration, and there's still that, I don't know if I want to call it an urban legend, more of a rumor than anything else, that Kawhi was on purpose stalling the Lakers in order to stop them from signing certain free agents. Like the Lakers, I guess, probably could have got D'Angelo Russell. Now they weren't offering a max contract like the Warriors did, but D'Angelo Russell maybe would have been an option. You've got some other pieces they could have gone after, right? And because they couldn't, because they were waiting on Kawhi's decision, those pieces all went elsewhere. But like you said, the Rob Pelinka thing was huge. And so my whole thing going in, and I had just, when that news broke, I was packing to go to Las Vegas to go cover Summer League for Lakers Nation. So I was in my studio right here, and I was packing up all of my stuff, and I was packing up all my gear. We had just done a live show. We had just finished it up, and I just got through saying, look, what you want to see is if Kawhi goes somewhere else. And Adrian Wojnarowski was taking a lot of heat because he had continued to say that Kawhi was probably going to go to the Clippers, and everybody else was saying it was going to be something else. And so Woj was taking a lot of flack. And as it turns out, he does pick the Clippers. And I was saying, look, if and when the Kawhi decision comes down, expect a flurry of moves from the Lakers if it's not them. If he picks anywhere else, expect the Lakers will have a backup plan in an ideal situation, right? And sure enough, they did, because it wasn't, what was it? It was maybe 30 minutes after the Kawhi news broke. Boom, Danny Green. Danny Green went to social media and posted a video of himself saying, I'm a Laker. Right? It was 1, 2, 3. We already had Jared Dudley, already had Troy Daniels because those were on minimum deals. It was Danny Green, Quinn Cook, and then next thing you know, I get off the plane to land in Las Vegas. I'm maybe 30 yards away from the plane, and my phone goes off. Boom, DeMarcus Cousins. Right? And to me, that was when I went, you know what? This sucks. This isn't great. Kawhi picking the Clippers, that hurts. But look at what Rob Pelinka did. He had a fallback plan and he executed it. And because of that, he put the Lakers in a position where they can still win a championship. No, it's not as good as having 3 stars, particularly when you're talking about Kawhi Leonard, somebody of that caliber. But he had a fallback plan in place, ready to go, and executed it the second he knew. And so I gave him a lot of credit in that regard, and that gave me a lot of confidence in him. So to me, that was the silver lining for that day.
Right, right. And then my confidence kind of grew for him after Magic kind of drug him in the dirt. And then I started looking at Magic a little bit more differently. I love Magic Johnson. He's, regardless of what he does to us, he's a Laker. Regardless, he's all time Laker. But that really hurt what he did, and then it lost a lot of confidence in a lot of Laker fans. But Rob pulled it together, and I think that he did a masterful job in reconstructing this team, and putting us in position to possibly contend with a championship. What are your thoughts, Big Baby, on that?
About overall, yeah, I totally agree. But Magic Johnson was the one that got LeBron here, and then that kind of started like the Anthony Davis thing. So Magic Johnson deserves kind of the credit too with Rob Pelinka. That's how I feel. But Trevor Lane, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, he certainly deserves credit just for bringing that air of optimism back to the Lakers. I mean, he took over during a pretty tough time. Certainly wasn't an easy situation to go into. I think things didn't work out for a variety of reasons, whether it was a personality conflict or more. Magic Johnson has a lot of other businesses to run. And if you've got Magic that can't be there all the time because he's doing other things versus Daryl Morey, who is there nonstop and is a workaholic and all of these things, that's not a good thing for the Lakers. So in the long run, I think it was best that they parted ways with Magic. But like you said, I love Magic. I grew up on Magic Johnson. When Magic came back in '96, I plastered the walls of my room with the newspaper clippings from his return. I was so excited. When he faked Latrell Sprewell out of his boots in his comeback game, I was thrilled. I was doing laps around my house. So I'm a huge Magic Johnson fan, but I think it was ultimately for the best. And, you look at what the team's done without him. All the conversation in the offseason was, oh, they messed up the coaching hire. They didn't do things right with Ty Lue. Who knows what this is? There's a lot of dysfunction there. Who knows what it's going to look like? Is Frank Vogel even going to be the coach by Christmas, or is Jason Kidd going to take over? 2 weeks into the season, that's gone. And we haven't heard a peep since. And I think that's a testimony to just how well everything has worked out, because when you're winning, you don't hear complaints about the front office. You don't hear complaints about the coach. And so that's been, I think, a big feather in the cap of a Lakers team that was badly in need of stability.
Winning solves everything, and winning solves everything. And Frank Vogel's preaching that tough defense, that tough mindset. When we got 2 assistant coaches, Jason Kidd, Lon Hollins, they brought their toughness, championship experience, and it's rubbing off on the players. And they do. ESPN is quiet, man. Like all the sports people out there that write about the Lakers, like disrespecting, they're quiet. They got nothing to say. And like once we win this title, they have nothing else to say. I'm just tired of Lakers getting hated on. As a fan, I'm done. I'm sick and tired of it.
When Magic Johnson was actually hired for that role, I kind of looked at it kind of funny, just because Magic didn't strike me as an employee. He always struck me as a man that paved his own way, kind of did his own thing. And then when he got with the Lakers, he was no longer Magic Johnson. Even though we called him Magic Johnson, I mean, he was Irvin Johnson. Like, he was just a regular, employee. He was employed by the Lakers. He didn't strike me as the type that would be able to conform like that. And he gave the Lakers 2 years, I believe. I think he publicly said that if he wasn't able to make them championship contenders, that he was just gonna walk away from it. And he did it very prematurely. Like we didn't expect that at all. I think he just kept rising, and a lot of things kept going on, and he just stepped away.
That was so bad. That was so bad when Magic said that, because everybody, I'm sure you guys had the same reaction I did. I went, "Oh my God, what does he do?" I wanted to punch a wall at that point, because we had just gone through Jim Buss.
Yeah,
He did an artificial deadline on himself. It put all the pressure on him, and he ends up losing his job. And then here comes Magic saying, "Well, if I can't be a contender in 2 years," he'd say almost the same thing. "I'm going to walk away." Oh man! But fortunately, it was about 24 hours later that they landed LeBron James. But Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about Magic in that moment. I'm sure you guys had the same reaction.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I had the same reaction. I was like, why would he do that? How come he can't just tell Genie behind the scenes or give them a heads up? Hey, I'm stepping down. Instead of
Mhm.
just, I'm done. I'm out. That's not very good on his part. But it's Magic. Laker fans forgive him. I forgive him. It is what it is. I'm moving forward with the Lakers.
And then
Yeah, and he's and
LeBron.
he's better off now, right? He's better
Yeah.
off being able because now he can be Magic again.
Hmm.
Like you're saying, he can be Irvin while he's the general manager of the Lakers and he's running all that, or the president of basketball operations, I should say. But now he can be Magic again, and before he had to be so careful. I mean, remember all the tampering charges and all that. He had to be so careful about who he talked about. He doesn't need to worry about any of that anymore. He can just be himself. So I think really for him and for the Lakers, it's worked out for the best.
And then like if you think about it, even like for free agencies, like they can still call Magic Johnson and like, hey, we know we got Magic Johnson. He's here. You know, shaking hands and just being Magic. That smile, the charisma. Just being Magic. Like you just don't see Magic as on a day to day operations with a team, and that's all he does. That really hurt him not to be able to give guys um, credit or say he like a particular player or give them insight to games and things like that. Like that Ben Simmons situation, I thought it was harmless
Hmm.
that Ben reached out to him and he actually started talking to him, but they hit him with a tampering charge on that. And I thought that was kind of crazy. I think that really like bothered him that he wasn't able to be Magic Johnson.
Well, this is off the top of my head, but I believe that one was okay. The league did investigate it, but once they clarified that Simmons did indeed reach out to Magic and he was the one that initiated it, I don't think they charge. I'd have to go back and look. I know one that he got charged with that they actually
Mm.
got fined for, which was ridiculous. I still can't believe it. He got fined for saying Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to win a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh
That
yeah,
that
I
was
remember
tampering,
that.
which was just unbelievable. And that's where you could see, look, it's hard to be Magic when saying another person's name is boom tampering charge,
And you
right?
got
So doesn't work.
and the Paul George one on national TV with Jimmy Kimmel.
That actually came about because of Rob Pelinka's connections with Paul George's agent, and they
Okay.
found that was it. But that the Paul George winking thing on Jimmy
Hmm.
Kimmel, that certainly didn't help the situation. But the fine actually came about because of Pelinka.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How much of an impact would live sports be as far as like our economy right now? Because right now, our of course, our economy is trying to struggle to restart back. So, what would the NBA restart be as far as our economy with no fans available? Would it and like how would that look?
So I think it means a lot, and I don't think you're going to lose the revenue from the fans in the arena. You're going to lose the revenue from the restaurant sales around the arenas. You're going to lose the ticket sales. You're going to lose the concessions. You're going to lose, the little kid buying the foam finger and all of that kind of stuff, right? All the merchandise and all of that. That's all gone out the window. But in terms of as a country, sports getting back is a big deal. It's a big deal in terms of feeling like you have a return to normalcy. We've seen, some UFC events have been on recently. The German Bundesliga have started up, and just for me personally, to be able to turn those on has felt more normal. I've even been watching the Korean baseball league and things like that. Just to have live sports, it gives you a little bit of that feeling of normalcy, that life isn't completely disrupted. And I think in that sense, in terms of bringing that kind of morale boost to the country, will in turn allow people to feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit less scared. And perhaps there's an economic component to that where if people are feeling a little bit better about the situation and the way things are moving, maybe they'll be more inclined to go out and spend money. So maybe there is an economic boost that comes along with it. But I think the biggest thing is just making people feel a little bit better and giving them that normalcy of, hey, it's a Tuesday night. I can turn on some Lakers basketball and kind of have my evening to decompress from a tough day. It's been months since we've had that, and so I think it's important on a number of levels, and I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Oh, definitely, myself as well. What about you, Big Baby?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting basketball back in sports, and I'm still angry about losing to the Brooklyn Nets by 1 point. I'm still angry about that. We're on the 1 game losing streak still, and I'm still angry as a fan. But overall, I'm just ready for it to come back and we get number 17 tying the Celtics, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I've repressed that game. I'm pretending that didn't even happen.
Yeah,
I'm just living in those moments when the Lakers beat the Bucks and the Clippers, and I've watched those games probably 20 times on my DVR in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
same here. Spencer Dinwiddie went off on that game though. Like I don't know what was going on with him that game.
No, it's
Sorry, with who?
Spencer Dinwiddie that game
Oh,
with the
yeah.
Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, he went off that game. I don't know what was going on with him. He was on another planet.
He was planning out his GoFundMe to figure out where he's going to play next. He said I'd better get in a good performance here, but apparently it didn't work so well.
Hey,
Right,
Lakers would
right.
take Spencer Dinwiddie. I would take him as a 6 man.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
He's fantastic.
He's a California product, isn't he? He's from Cali, isn't he?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can find that out real quick here. It sounds right, but let's see here. He played in Colorado. Yeah, from Woodland Hills. I didn't
Mm.
realize he was a Woodland Hills guy. Yeah, LA.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he was. It would fit for sure. Because
Absolutely.
I didn't know how that was gonna work out with them getting Kyrie and Spencer Dinwiddie. It's like he's on the rise, and I think they just messed up that chemistry with that Brooklyn Nets team. You know, getting KD and getting all them, and that Brooklyn Nets team was pretty good without them.
Yeah, you know what? I think here's what's going to happen, and like the Brooklyn Nets. So a few years ago, I guess more than a few years ago now, when they pushed all the chips in and they went
Mm.
and got KG and they got Paul Pierce
Uh,
and they added them to Darren Williams and Brooke Lopez, and then they went and they got, what was it, Joe Johnson,
Mm.
right? And they had that really good team. I think we're going to see that again. I think they've put themselves in an interesting position. You've got Kyrie, you've got Kevin Durant, but then you've got some pieces, right? You've got Spencer Dinwiddie, you've got Karis LeVert, you've got Jared Allen, you've got some young players that teams are going to want. I think they're going to go try and add a third piece whenever the offseason is, probably in the fall. We were just talking about that today, and we're looking at probably in October free agency. And so they are most likely going to look to go cash in some of those pieces. And maybe, like you're saying, because you already have a point guard in Kyrie who's going to demand the ball in his hands quite a bit, maybe Spencer Dinwiddie is one of those pieces that you cash in because he is a valuable player and he is somebody that other teams are going to want.
I definitely agree with that because I would like Big Baby was saying, I would like for the Lakers to try to make a push for him if possible. Um, Another thing too, what do you think about with all this time that we've been having the players kind of rest and kind of get themselves together? What do you think about Boogie's chances about going back to the Lakers?
So DeMarcus Cousins, I don't think he's coming back this season. There's been some talk about that. Some people I've been getting asked that just about every show we do. What about DeMarcus Cousins? What about bringing him back? Isn't he healed up by now? I don't foresee that happening. He'd have to re-sign because he was waived by the Lakers, which means cutting somebody else. And I just don't know that they need him. But I will say this. I think there's a lot of positive momentum for him to stay with the Lakers if he wants to. And I think that's great because most likely, with the market being what it's going to be with the salary cap, at the very best, it'll stay the same. And that's if they artificially freeze the cap at where it's at, which is at 109 million. If they do that, there's just not a lot of money out there. And so I'm thinking that DeMarcus Cousins, coming off of all these injury issues that he's had, and poor guy, obviously, the Achilles and the ACL and the quad and all of that, the market for him is going to be tough. And so most likely he's going to be signing a minimum deal somewhere. And that's going to be a prove it type contract. Show us you can stay healthy. Maybe you get more later on. I think the same way of thinking applies here than when the Lakers signed him last summer. So last summer, when the Lakers signed him for $3.5 million, I thought, well, this is great because the risk that he gets hurt and can't play the season, which came true, is baked into that price. Right? DeMarcus Cousins is worth way more than $3.5 million if he stays healthy. So it was a worthwhile gamble. He didn't wind up staying healthy, but you still take that chance. my point is, if he's going to sign anywhere for the minimum, I want him to be with the Lakers, because if he can stay healthy, he is going to be way more valuable than a minimum salary, even if he's only 70% of the player that he used to be. And so far, the Lakers have done everything right in order to keep him around. Even when he got hurt, they kept him in with the team. They kept him as part of the squad. He was one of the guys. They kept him in the loop. And up to my knowledge, to this day, he is still part of the Lakers' infamous group chat text thread that they've got going. He's still part of that, even though he's not really part of the team. So I think there's a pretty decent shot that DeMarcus Cousins does come back next season. Perhaps he gets offers elsewhere where there's more playing time. And if the Lakers decide that JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard are both coming back, maybe it doesn't work out. But it feels like it's a better than 50% chance in my mind that the opportunity will be there for DeMarcus Cousins to be a Laker again next season, which I'm on board with 100%.
I wanted to ask you a question. So, how would, hypothetically, if he remained healthy, how would he fit in with the Lakers' current roster? So, say for instance, like, would we get the same? We wouldn't even have Dwight Howard if he did actually did remain healthy. So he wouldn't even be in the equation. So, what do you think Boogie's impact would be with this current Lakers team? Would it be the same as we gotten with Dwight, or do you think it would be better?
I think it would be worse on the defensive end and better on the offensive end, and maybe that's a little bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
I think that DeMarcus Cousins was penciled in to be the starter at center, whereas JaVale McGee was going to be the backup. And then when they went and got Dwight Howard, that was obviously that changed. That scenario changed. And Dwight has been tremendous, been one of my favorite stories this season. His resurgence, his comeback. He's a fan favorite in Los Angeles now. Who would have pictured that, right? But as far as Cousins goes, the big benefit was always on the offensive end, because with Cousins, he can do. Look, Dwight has hit a few threes this season. In fact, I think he's technically like the Lakers' best 3-point shooter. I think on 3 or 4 attempts right now, his percentage is way up there. But Dwight isn't going to stretch the floor the way DeMarcus Cousins can. He also isn't the passer out of the high post the way Cousins would be. So when you get the Lakers lineups where things are a little bit bogged down, because you're running Dwight and AD and they're kind of clogging up the paint, you don't have that problem with DeMarcus Cousins out there on the floor spacing it. So you're either going to get, defenses would have to pick their poison. You're either going to give up an open three to Boogie, who is a competent 3-point shooter, or you're going to open up driving lanes for LeBron and space to operate for Anthony Davis. So on the offensive end of the floor, I love it. But that said, Dwight Howard has been tremendous this season, especially on the defensive end. He's been protecting the rim. And who knows if DeMarcus Cousins would provide that. I'd say probably not at the same level as Dwight. So, the offense will be a little bit prettier, but I think you'd see a little bit of a drop-off on defense as well.
I said the beginning of the season, I remember saying it. So I said if Dwight Howard could get us at least 5 points, maybe 5 or 10 points a game, a few boards here and there, redirect some shots here and there, and plug that middle, I think that he'll be okay. I don't want him to overcomplicate. You're not the same 2010 guy you was in Orlando when you first came to LA. I just needed him to understand his role, but he is overly achieved. And I think that he has exceeded all my expectations. I don't know, like, how do y'all feel about that? Do you think he's actually exceeded expectations?
Oh, 100%. He has beyond blown me away. I was one of the people last offseason when they were kicking the tires on a lot of these guys. I made an argument for why you might want Joakim Noah over Dwight Howard. And looking back, that seems incredibly foolish. Dwight Howard has been phenomenal. And here's what it is. It's not just that he's been playing well. It's what he's been doing that has been so impressive to me. Because let me tell you, one of the things that's really difficult for a superstar level player to do is accept that transition into being a role player, right? Vince Carter pulled it off, but look at how hard it was for Carmelo Anthony. How many teams didn't want anything to do with Carmelo Anthony because there was concern about whether or not he could do that. He could handle not being the guy anymore. And Dwight Howard was that guy. We remember from back in 2012, look, Dwight was the guy that, hey, if he's going to compete hard on the defensive end, he's going to demand post touches on offense, even though he's completely inefficient there. He wants the ball in the post, and you have to give it to him. He's going to slip every screen. He's not going to make good contact. His technique boxing out isn't going to be great. all of that, right? But you put up with it because he was that superstar. He has turned all of that around this season. He's setting hard screens. He's rolling hard to the basket. He's blocking out and in the paint. He's protecting the rim. He doesn't care about his touches. He doesn't care about his minutes. He's on the bench. He's celebrating for his teammates. Dwight Howard was humbled by what's happened to him, by being cut by the Memphis Grizzlies, by being let go by all of these teams, and realized if I want to stick in this league, I have to swallow my pride and I have to do all of the little things that my team needs me to do in order to win. And in doing that, he has been not only incredibly successful personally, but it's helped out the Lakers to a tremendous degree. And like I said, I know I'm getting all gushy about this here, but Dwight Howard has been one of my absolute favorite stories this season because he's been able to make that transition. And on a personal level, I'm so thrilled to see him do that.
Big Baby?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Dwight Howard playing an amazing high level, tenacity, defense, just his energy is different, And I feel like him and Kobe's thing had that beef, and he left, and all that. Him going through getting traded, and he understood all that stuff. And now he's playing like he. I was watching one of his interviews on, I think it was NBA TV, I believe. He said he plays every day like it's his last game in the NBA. That's why he has a high energy. He's not taking anything for granted.
Yeah, that's it. That's it exactly.
Dwight, if you win a ring with the Lakers, it's going to be amazing, man.
Absolutely. And can you guys imagine, right? I mean, you brought up Kobe. Unfortunately, Kobe passes away, but we got that confirmation, that word from Dwight, that Kobe had indeed agreed to be in the dunk contest with him. Imagine that. I mean, obviously it hurt so much to lose Kobe, but what a moment that would have been if Kobe had come out there and helped Dwight out in the dunk contest. That would have been incredible.
I actually had a chance to.
And speaking of Kobe, Go
ahead, Big Baby.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say the breaking news that happened earlier today, the NBA pushing back the Hall of Fame for next year, 2021.
So
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
So I did get a chance to I read your article, I think the day that Kobe had passed away. It was a very touching and emotional article. Could you take me through that time? Like, how did you feel like when you wrote it? And how did you get the news?
Yeah, so come to think of it, I think that was actually the last full-length editorial that I've written that wasn't meant to be video. I've done a few things that I've written that were video-based, that was, as a companion to a video. But yeah, that's the last full-length editorial. I got to write something new. But, I was out in my yard, in my backyard playing with my daughter, and my phone went off, and it was a tweet notification from Corey Hansford, who is one of my colleagues at Lakers Nation, and his tweet said something to the effect of no, tell me this isn't true. And that was weird. That's not the way Corey speaks, right? And so that was odd to me. And so I opened up my phone and I looked at it, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I couldn't believe what I saw when I finally saw TMZ reporting what had happened. And so I walk inside, and my wife was in there sitting on the couch, and my daughter was complaining that I was going inside because she wanted to stay out in the backyard and keep playing. And I said, no, come in. And I looked at my wife, and she had her phone in front of her, and I said, are you seeing this? And she said, no, what? And I said, I think Kobe died. And she just turned white, and she said, I had already turned white. And, I spent most of that day just in a state of shock. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what was happening. I was keeping up on the news, watching everything that was happening, and just, I couldn't even imagine like producing any sort of content. And I got a message from the owner of Lakers Nation and said, hey, I know you guys are all struggling. LakersNation.com, we had hardly anything out on it. Like, we didn't have any real coverage. We just had a basic news story. That was it. Because we were all shocked and we were all struggling with it. And it wasn't something that anybody could kind of muster up the strength to do. And he messaged me and he said, can you write something on this? We need to get something out there. I'm sorry. I know this is a tough time. And I said, okay. And so I went and I sat down on the couch, and my daughter, 3-year old came and climbed to my lap. And I posted a picture of it on my Instagram, and I just started writing, and that's what came out, what you read. It took me about 45 minutes to write, which is record time. It all just kind of like I snapped out of it, and the floodgates open, and it all just came out of me. And because I couldn't believe what was happening. I couldn't believe what was going on. And my initial reaction is usually to think big picture. Once I get a moment, is to step back and think big picture about what it all means. And so that's what I tried to encapsulate, was not just how horrible of a tragedy it is, but of what Kobe Bryant meant to all of us, to Lakers fans, what he meant to basketball fans around the world, and more than that, the different lessons that we can take away from the way that he lived his life and the way he approached things and the way he constantly pushed himself. And so I tried to encapsulate that in that article. And yeah, I think it came out okay, but it certainly was a difficult day, and one that I'll never forget.
Yeah, when I read it, I think you wrote it that same day. I mean,
I
that's when
did.
I saw the date on there. I was like, wow, like I mean, it was pretty remarkable how you was able to put all that together that same day with all those emotions, and you could just read every sentence on there that it was just raw emotion, and I can definitely feel Kobe's impact in that article. Big Baby, did you have a chance to listen to read that?
No, I haven't. But when I found out Kobe passed, I was helping my mom move to her job, and I got a notification from TMZ. I was like this, just looking at it, just like 5 minutes. And my cousin was like, "What you doing? Why you standing like that?" Like, I'm good. I won't tell you. So you better tell me. I'm good, man. I'm good. As soon as I showed him, he like batted the phone down. I'm like, don't show me that. Ain't real. Watch out. And I showed my uncle. He batted the phone down. And then I'm like, and then once Wojnarowski tweeted it, I just dropped the phone and started balling. And I went on Instagram Live and started balling. And then I made a video about it for YouTube. And it was very emotional for me. Kobe's Kobe's will be missed. And you know, sorry about that. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, man, it's still tough. Just to think about it, his impact. I've been following Lakers ever since that first championship that Kobe had won, um, right after the lockout season, and it's been tough just trying to cope with the loss, and trying to look at old Laker footage, and I get frustrated with people still debating sometimes about who's the
Mhm.
best, and things like that, and it's still tough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an easy thing. And here's the thing, right? So Kobe, when you look at the connection that he had with Lakers fans, part of that is because of 2 decades, right? 2 decades in LA. And you think about all the growing that each one of us has done as a person over 2 decades. It's a long time. That's a long time to be following somebody's career. And so even if you haven't met him personally, even if you haven't spoken to him, you generate that connection because you're watching him on a nightly basis. For me, Kobe's 3 years older than me. And so I grew up, I was, in high school and everything, just amazed that a guy that was just a few years older than I was now playing on the Lakers. I was just beside myself. I couldn't believe it. And so I watched every single moment of his career. And, as he's growing in the NBA, I'm going off to college and doing all of these other things. And so there were just, you feel like all of those big moments of your life, you look back and Kobe's there. And so on one hand, you almost feel a little bit silly, right? Like as sports fans, you're like, gosh, it's just, I didn't know the person personally. It wasn't like a personal friend of mine or anything like that. Just somebody that we watched on TV and everything. But then you understand that it's more than that. That when you look at the connection that you actually had because the time you spent and all of that, it's okay to still be upset. It's okay to be hurt by something like that. It's okay to have all of those feelings. I was fortunate enough to get to go to the memorial at Staples Center, and I mean, seeing Lakers
Mm.
fans in there, not a dry eye in the house, and what he meant to everybody. It's inspiring in a lot of ways, and still incredibly sad. And I think if we can take solace in one thing, it's that that's never going to go away because 2 decades doesn't just disappear. And so Kobe, even though he's gone, he'll always be a part of Lakers fandom from now through the end of time, right? I mean, he will forever be a part of our lives, and through that, he keeps living.
Big baby.
Yeah, I have a Kobe story real quick before we get up on here. He followed me on Twitter and he messaged me. We messaged each other back, and that was crazy. I remember when he followed me too. Was when when Kobe tore his Achilles, it was playing the Spurs in San Antonio, and then he was like, "I'll follow people. What should we do in the game?" And I said, "Give the ball to Pal, go to work." And I put the phone down, and I saw enough Kobe Bryant follow you. And I stood up and I was like, "Let's go." My brother Michael was like, "What are you doing?" And Kobe just followed me. He was like, "No, he didn't." And I showed him, and then I'm like, "Okay, it's crazy." Kobe Bryant following me on Twitter, man. That's amazing, man. I got a chance to talk to him, and it was amazing talking to him in direct message too. I was shocked when he responded back.
Last thing I wanna say, and then we can end the show. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing that I hated about the tragic passing, I never did have any kind of interaction with Kobe. I've been following his career all this time, um, debating different people about how great he was and how much he's influenced me and impacted me. And even though it's probably a long shot that I probably wouldn't, it's just the fact that I know definitively I won't ever get the chance to meet Kobe Bryant, like actually in person,
Mm.
and that's tough.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing, right? To know that, but I'll flip it around to the silver lining here. Um, when the first time I was around NBA players, right? There's this larger than life aura around them, and I'll admit, my first time going and interviewing players, like I was a little bit nervous, right? I think I went to media day like 4 or 5 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was a little bit nervous, like, oh, can I just go up to this guy and talk to him and everything like that? And um, it kind of makes you realize that, hey, if you have the opportunity to go talk to somebody, to go to get to interview somebody, take it. Go do it. Don't, if you're nervous or whatever like that, just you get over it and you go talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know, and you never know the connections that you can create. So yeah, look, obviously we won't get a chance to interview Kobe Bryant, but you get a chance with some other players and to talk to them and pick their brain and things. One of my favorite people to interview was actually Tarek Black, who was
Oh
Mm.
wow,
tremendous, had all kinds of great. I mean, just a down to earth, humble guy, and just such a nice, just genuine person. Like, um, it's easy to forget that these guys are all they're human beings and they're people too. And so, obviously we can't interview Kobe, but if interviewing players is something that you really want to do, if you ever see an opportunity, take it. Go ask them and talk to them. And some guys might shoot you down, but you know what? There's a lot that will take the time, and you find out these guys are just regular people.
definitely. Trev, I was really nervous about reaching out to you because I always looked at your YouTube broadcast, and I like how the content is, how professional it sounds, and everything. I was like, man, like I'm really biting off more than I can chew by getting Trevor Lane from Lakers Nation on my podcast, and just by listening to what you say, it gives me a lot more confidence to reach out to more people.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and honestly, it's weird for me to hear that in a way, because like I said, I started the Lakers Nation podcast 4 years ago or so, and I stumbled over the mic. I had all kinds of different audio issues at first. I couldn't figure things out. In fact, here, I know we're running long here, but you guys want a story here about how awful and how nervous and how horrible I was. I believe it was the seventh episode that I did of the
Mm-hmm.
Lakers Nation podcast. I was on cloud nine because I messaged John Ireland,
Mm.
and I got John Ireland to come on the show. And John Ireland, where he was and where I was, there was going to be a little bit of a time difference. And he said, hey, I can do the show, but I've got to do my radio show from this time to this time. And, can you make this work? I said, absolutely, no problem. And so I forgot about the time difference. I was so I'm going to ask him this question and this question and this question, and I'm going to promote it, and this is going to be great and everybody's going to love it. And I was so wrapped up in that part and so nervous about making sure that I did everything perfect, that I recorded things just right, and that I made sure the quality was great and all of those things, that I called him in the middle of his show. While he's on the air, I call him. I'm blowing up John Ireland's phone while he's in the middle of his radio show, and he texts me back, "Trevor, I'm still doing my show. Remember, I told you this." I was mortified. I couldn't believe it. That I had messed up the math on the time difference between myself and John Ireland at that moment, and I was so embarrassed. I always remind myself of that, like that's that's me. Like that's not I've obviously done well here, and I've enjoyed doing what I've been doing for Lakers Nation, but like I said, I'm extremely fortunate to be where I'm at. And so if there's any advice I can give you guys, it's just keep going, man. Keep grinding.
Big baby, you have any final thoughts?
Appreciate you coming on, man, and thanks for the words of encouragement, man. And my favorite rapper always says, Nipsey Hussle, RIP, marathon continues.
That's right.
So Trevor, could you tell everyone how they can follow Lakers Nation and how they can listen to more of your broadcast?
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. You can find me on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. I am doing, like I said earlier, most of the content on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, so you can find all of my breakdowns and stuff there. I'm doing a couple of different shows. I do the NBA front office show with Keith Smith, where we focus on the league as a whole, and we do that weekly. We recorded one of those today. And then I also do the Lakers Nation podcast live, which we do right now twice a week. Typically, we do it post game during their season, but right now we're doing it Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, or sorry, Pacific time, and Thursday night at 9 o'clock Pacific time as well. And you can find that on YouTube, on the Lakers Nation accounts, YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. And then you can also find my work over at LakersNation.com.
I actually had a chance to listen to that one today. Actually, it was a really good show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Keith is awesome. I throw questions at him and just let him go, because he knows all the cap minutia, and he is in the zone right now, man, because he spent 20 years working for Disney, and with the NBA going to Disney, it's like his two worlds have collided. And so he's in heaven, because he knows everything about the NBA and he knows everything about Disney right now. So he's having a good time with this.
He's definitely very knowledgeable about basketball. I didn't have no idea.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So thank you again, Trevor. I do want to end the show on that note. If you don't have anything else, Big Baby.
No, just want to say thank you for coming on, and it's always a pleasure, man.
Hey, no problem, guys, and thank you for having me.
I definitely have to get you back on again once the season gets started again.
For sure. Yeah. Let me know. We'll carve out some time.
No problem. Thank you again. Trevor Lane from Lakers Nation.